our fellow lovers of love, and thank you for joining us on yet another excursion through the stream of consciousness down the river of tranquility to fill the lake of life with love.
And good evening, our fellow lovers of love out there. Thank you for joining us on tonight's episode. And we're talking about loneliness or being alone, and if being alone turns into loneliness, kind of how do you get through that? Because it can feel hopeless at times, right? I think is what I titled Alone and Hopeless, as I think is what the title is. But really, it's about the difference between being alone and being lonely. There's a difference there. And then there's a difference between feeling hopeless and finding your way through that. Or maybe I shouldn't say finding, I should say working your way through that is probably a better description.
Yes.
Rather than finding your way through it. And if you go to latenightLove.us, you can find the articles we kind of posted to start these conversations amongst ourselves. And the first one we've talked about is, does your news feed kind of make you feel hopeless and depressed and lonely? Because social media is a strange tool, right? We like to blame social media for lots of things, lots of problems in our lives and in society. But the reality of social media is exactly what we make of it. We can choose what to click on. We can choose what to scroll past. We can choose who to interact with and who not to. We can choose what to comment on. And the algorithm feeds on our choices. So you can literally feed your own social media by what you engage with. But you also don't want to create such a small bubble that you don't notice the world around you. And there's a lot of distress in the world. And we as humans, we like to fix things. We like to make the world a better place for future generations. I mean, that's why we're alive. That's why we have air conditioning and cars and planes and indoor plumbing and all those things. They didn't invent those things for themselves. They invented those things for the next generations. It's the next generations that actually benefit the most. It's not the generations that invented those things. It's the future generations. And it's our habit, in the human habit of making a mess while trying to clean up another one. It's
Really.
It's the history of humanity. It really is. We try to make a better life, so we create some invention or we do something different, but that has side effects. And so then you do something different. It goes all the way back to the cave days. Way back in the days, you used to bury your dead, and all your trash and all your waste were inside the cave. And when the cave got too dirty, you'd move, go find a different cave. Well, at some point it becomes a hassle and you learn to clean out the cave every now and again. Well, then at some point you realize, well, this is dumb. Why don't we just not make the mess in the first place? And we'll put our waste and our trash outside. Well, that has a problem because it piles up, and then wolves and bears and predatory animals are attracted. Okay, so we learn to bury it, right? Which is fine when you're little isolated groups, but once you become civilizations, that burying of the waste ends up into the water table, which you get the water out of to drink from. So it becomes this big, huge ordeal. And next thing you know, we learn how to build. 1,000 years later, we learn how to build dumps properly so as to not contaminate the water. But the whole point of it is that as we look out on the world, and there's so much destruction, societal decay, at least superficially anyway, that we see with our eyes, and our desire to want to fix that. And for those of us who are, shall we say, attuned to our emotions, that can be overwhelming.
I over-identify. I have a hard time with it.
And so, you have to understand that it's perfectly okay for you to not have to, engage with all of it. It's perfectly fine to pick and choose. It's perfectly fine to say, I can't take care of my world if I don't take care of myself. And if I engage too much in the goings-ons of the world, I can't take care of myself. And then I can't take care of my own world. And so then that's worse for the whole world. And so it's technically better for you to not pay attention to the world so you don't make the world worse. It's technically, for some people, they can't do it. And so don't push yourself too hard. Leave that to those of us who do. And you say, but you have to have some responsibility for your civilization and for the society you live in. And this is true. But you have to start with yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your family. If you can't take care of your family can't take care of their family. If their family can't take care of themselves, then they can't take care of their communities. So the return of our communities, the return of healthy communities, starts with the return of healthy us's. We have allowed ourselves to become toxic. We have allowed ourselves to become unhealthy relationship with our communities. So we fix it within ourselves. You can't fix other people. We've had this discussion many times. You can only fix yourself. And if everybody fixes themselves, the world will become a better place. Not a perfect place, never going to happen, but it'll become a better place. And you will have been a part of it because you took care of yourself. And if you have it in you to participate more, great, do that. But whatever you participate in beyond that, it makes you a rock star and a superstar, not, it's not some failure that all you can do is take care of yourself. That's not a failure. That you can't participate in some of these robust discussions in the world because it's not good for your mental health. Well, then it's not good for society for you to do that. And you may have valuable things to say. That's fine. Then you can do it quietly. You can call, the politicians and talk to the politicians who you do trust. They do exist out there. It's not a political show, but they do exist. It's a funny thing. The last couple of days, I've had a conversation with someone who wants to run for school board. I had a conversation for somebody who wants to help with lobbying. And then I spent, I don't know, what was it, half an hour, essentially playing political therapist to a community member. She was distraught that she didn't have anybody she could feel she could vote for. And, and I understood. And so we sit there, we just had a, I don't know, half-hour conversation just to kind of, she was having a tough time with it. She's an older lady and she's used to having, and, she was really distraught. And so, she called me up, and I appreciate the fact that she felt comfortable calling me up and talking to me about this.
Yes.
Your role as community leaders sometimes are ill-defined, and they're ill-defined for a reason, because you never know what role your community needs you to fill. And today, on election day, she needed essentially a shoulder to cry on. Yeah, it was a sad day for her. And so I filled that role. And, so whatever role you can fill, if you're the person who wants to vote and can't find anybody to vote for, and so you don't, and you need to call up your local party chair and cry on your shoulder, that's fine. That's a role. It tells your local party chair that you care, that there's people in your community. You're not speaking just for yourself. There's hundreds of people who are out there feeling the same way she is. And it actually gives feedback. That's actually doing something. It doesn't feel like it. You don't see the results pop out, but the results do pop out. You just don't see them because you don't know where to look. Nobody does. Even I don't know where to look. I'm not entirely sure how that input is going to pop out, but it will. It always does. So anyway, the point is you're not alone. And while things can feel hopeless, you can work through them and you can help yourself. Starting with yourself is perfectly reasonable. It's a reasonable choice to make. Number one priority has to be you so other people can fit on the list. Otherwise, you can't take care of them. Okay, and this next one is something I think we can relate to as well, right? Was this the one where she was feeling very lonely?
Yes, it was after a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
She had, I believe it was a 5-month-old son. So
5 months or 5 years? I think it was
it 5?
It was 5
years?
something. Yeah, I made it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
5 years. So there wasn't a lot of adult conversation going on. So she decided she had some fail. She tried to date and it wasn't going well. So she made a conscious decision to not date and to spend some time by herself and make friends with solitude.
Yeah.
And what she started to do was, the first thing she did was make a list of everything she wanted to do but never had the time or support to try. I didn't make a list, but there was a couple of things I did. I did the same thing after my first divorce. Like going to the restaurant. She tried dance lessons. That's very brave.
Yeah. Well, for me, after the spate of unhealthy behavior is over, then then what you do is what I did anyway is you focus on yourself. I go into some kind of self education, whether it's learning about history or whatever. Take some kind of self education, start to improve my knowledge in some area, focus on that, and kind of work my way back to finding who I really am rather than this thing that I'm not really, the wounded animal that you are, the wounded, scared animal, essentially that you are at that point, because that's what happens after a divorce or something like that. You're a wounded animal who doesn't know where your foundations lie anymore. Your world is completely different. And the world you were living in is now completely different than the world you weren't. And you don't really know what firm ground you're standing on. And so, take some time to rebuild yourself. And whether if you're a listy person and you need those kind of structures, then that's fine. If you're someone who is into education and then, they dive into education, right? That's a normal one. Lots of people dive into unhealthy behaviors, but that's a short-term fix.
Yeah.
That's just not even a fix. That just creates more problems than it solves. It's it's like a drug. It puts you it paints over your pain. Doesn't do anything about it. It just paints over it, right?
Still have to end up dealing with it.
Yeah, it doesn't do a damn thing. It just gets your mind off of it for a little while. And maybe there's some value into that at here or then, but it's a dangerous cycle that you want try to avoid. I can't sit here and paint any fingers and be judgy because just hello.
Well, I know I did it.
It's very human. So don't feel like it's you're all it shows is that you're human. That's really all it shows. Doesn't show anything about you as a human being other than that you're a human being. It's far too common. But what's far too more common is the pain and trauma that we put ourselves through, that then we put ourselves through it again, trying to avoid it. We traumatize ourselves twice. We have failed relationships. We drag them out longer than we should. And then we essentially punish ourselves trying to ignore not deal with the pain from the failed relationships. So then we've got this 2 bags of crap to deal with eventually. Like, woo, yay, me, you know?
Now we need a counselor.
Yeah, man, I hate past guy, you know? Past me doesn't like future me very much, you know? That's all I'm saying. And future me is always pissed off at past me. So, for good reason. I'm just saying I think there's a Homer Simpson uh, thing about that. Oh, that's tomorrow me's problem. And then tomorrow me, he goes, oh, but that was, yesterday. Oh, I hate that guy. Like he's some different guy. You know, like tomorrow me and yesterday me were somehow some different guy. One day, it's tomorrow me's problem. And then tomorrow me, God, I hate yesterday me. It's a Homer Simpson gag. But it is. But it's just life is funny like that. And what do you do about it? Is there anything you even do about it, I suppose? You just kind of get your way through it. I don't have a trick. I mean, you had some tricks about making their list. And what was the other one she did?
Well, she had to set her priorities.
Well, see, there's a lot of underlying work that she went through to make this list. And I think it's that underlying work that was actually probably more beneficial to her than...
She suggested doing the most scary one first, but what I did was do the ones that weren't so scary. Go out to a restaurant, and I took a book.
Go to a movie alone?
Oh, I went to movies alone, but going to a restaurant alone, that was my first one. And it was kind of scary because you're alone and you're not, nothing to do but read, but yet I had a surprising amount of conversation with people. I'm pretty friendly.
Yeah. See, if I went I don't like eating, so that doesn't work for me. But I
pick seafood. I pick my favorite, so
Yeah, so see, going to get a chili dog doesn't count as eating out.
Oh no, I did that. I did Red Lobster, the sit down with the silverware and everything, linen.
No, go eat at the counter and all that kind of stuff, or did you eat at a booth?
I sat at a table.
Oh, see, it's one of those things where you go to Denny's and eat at a counter. I don't know, but I think the point is for her, it's you kind of search for yourself, find yourself. I mean, that's the whole process of setting the priorities, going through making that list. She's finding herself in a real sense.
Yes.
And so however it manifests itself, whether it's the list and going through that, whether it's going back to school or educating yourself or going to the gym, joining a basketball league, who cares exactly what it is, going back to church, it's not really relevant. It's that it's something. You do something to start to find yourself again. And I think that's the work that ultimately is important.
What she found out was that she ultimately preferred being alone than doing something with someone that she didn't want to do.
Well, I don't know. There's some give and take to that.
Well, that's just her story.
Yeah, I'm an introvert, so I generally like to be by myself anyway. Which how in the hell I'm a politician is beyond me. But and so I generally like to be by myself. Like a party wears me out, but having a conversation with a single person doesn't. And so there's a little bit of give and take to that. So if the question is, do I want to, go to a party or go to some big social event or stay home alone? I'll pick stay home alone every day of the freaking week. But if I have the opportunity to go out and have a conversation with one or two people, and if I can frame, an event that way, like I have a picnic event this week, I'm looking forward to it because I get a chance to sit down and have a number of conversations with individuals. I don't have to sit there and talk to a whole big audience. It's not a performance. You just get to sit down and have conversations with individuals. And so for me, that's much more comfortable than going up and giving a speech or, and I feel it weird because I'm on TV too. And so we do this. And so there's a little difference, I'm really comfortable in front of a TV camera. So there's some give and take to that about the introvert extrovert thing. I don't even know where I fit anymore, to be honest. Well, part of it is I've learned how to operate more freely, right? I've actually increased my skills. I took the opportunity. Okay, I'm an introvert, so I lack certain social skills, and so I've worked on them. I literally worked on them. I went and I watched a lot of charisma and presentation videos. And if you guys want one, Charisma on Command on YouTube. It's one of my go-to channels when I look for, those kind of things, tips on how to present yourself and on being awkward and how to, deal with when you're socially awkward. They're pretty good. The free things are pretty good. So you can go to something like that. And so, you actively work on those things that you're weak at, and eventually you become better at them. And as you become better at them, like anything else, they become less negative. It's just like the anxiety disorder. I became stronger against it. Well, now my skills have increased, so it's not such a ordeal. And, it's the same way dealing with whatever your situation is, whether you're feeling alone versus lonely. It's, how strong you are against it. She built herself up. I've built myself up in a different way. And you did the same thing. You quite literally rebuilt your foundation.
I had a foundation in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, but that's the whole part of it. Your foundation isn't just that. Their foundation has many parts. And so
there's a lot of parts to the program.
Yeah. So everybody has their, it manifests itself. So, look for your own way. Everybody should look for their own way. What's best for you. If it's making lists and doing something barely structured like that, if it's, doing self-help books or going to the gym, whatever it is to reconnect with your base self, what it is. Just look in the mirror and find it. Not you, them, you out there. Know where it is. I was looking at Lubby and I meant you. You guys out there know what it is. And so what's that leave us? That leaves us with this third one, right? My mind is fried. So what was our third one?
Okay. What was it?
Well, just go look at the title for me. Because the title, I always need the title.
Views on alone time. What's the deal anyway?
Oh, yeah. Man, we've kind of covered a lot of that. But how different people view, your perspective on alone. We've actually kind of covered a lot of that, right? We've covered a lot of it's kind of rambled on so much on the other one, then off tangent that I covered the views on alone time.
Well, some people even spend a lot of money to go to retreats. Some are silent. You don't speak for a weekend.
Yeah, well, and again, it really depends on you. If you're an extrovert and you have trouble being alone, you should probably work on being alone. Improve those skills. If you're someone who is an introvert and doesn't like interacting with people, and so you're socially awkward, you should probably work on those skills just to become a better, more well-rounded human being. Right? It's better to be better at more things than not, right? It just is. And so it's nice to have this perspective that, I like my alone time. I know how to deal with my alone time, but it's dangerous to become so ingrained in that you can't, that moving outside of that becomes essentially harmful to you. You know what I mean?
Okay.
If it's such an ordeal for you to live in that other world, whatever it is, if it's such an ordeal for you to be alone, or if it's such an ordeal for you to be in groups, then it's a big, huge warning sign that that's something you need to work on.
Yeah.
And, what stage you work on it, whether it's something real down deep and real base that you need to work on with yourself about, okay, dealing with whatever traumas you may have dealt with, or whatever anxiety disorders or something you have, and you have to deal with that first before you can deal with those other things. And that's fine. That's where you have to deal with it. Or if it's maybe you've just been a loner for so dang long, you've simply forgotten how to operate. You had your head down in the office and working, and you go home and you play video games, and it's 5 years later. Next thing you know, I don't know how to operate in society anymore. And there's might be a lot of that people dealing with now. People have been locked away in their house for a couple of years. There's probably a lot of that. This uncertainty for people who were socially awkward before, and now they're socially awkward and out of practice. So, there's a lot of people who are very comfortable in their alone time, and that may not be a good thing. Just as there's a lot of people who can't be alone, and that's not a good thing. It works the other way as well. You don't want to be unbalanced. Now maybe you're never going to get balanced, but you can get less unbalanced. Maybe it's not possible for a person to ever get balanced. Like, I'm never going to get balanced, but I can become less unbalanced. I can become less unbalanced later, in 2 years than I am now. And remember, life and relationships aren't short-term games. They're not. It's a long-term thing. It doesn't end until it ends. And you don't win. What you do is you work your way through it. You try to become a better you every day. And in that process, you hope you make decisions that make the world around you better. And, the better you become, the more you can focus that energy outwards, and the more you can focus on trying to make your communities better, and the more you can focus on kind of the rest of the world. But you can't focus on the rest of the world if your internal world is in chaos. Because you're going to interpret the external world as more chaotic than it actually is. And it's a pretty freaking chaotic place. So, if you're feeling troubled by the world today, if you're feeling alone by the world today, and all of this news, and all of your own financial troubles, and all the various things that we're all facing, famine, war, all the horrid things that we see on a day-to-day basis, and all this makes us feel alone and hopeless. Even if you're not alone, you can sometimes feel alone and hopeless.
Yes.
You can sometimes feel, that the world goes on around you and it doesn't care about you. And in a sense, it's true. The world doesn't care about you, but the people around you do. Everybody has someone who cares about them. Sometimes we forget that they do. Sometimes we allow them to slip away for a while. But the great thing about people who care about you, people who love you, they always will. So you can pick up that phone, you can write a letter, you can do whatever you want, and start reconnecting.
Cards are lovely.
And the nice thing about cards and letters these days? It's a nice surprise now.
Yes, it is.
It's so unusual that it's actually a nice surprise to get mail. A nice note or a card or something, because it's unusual. It's the unexpected. And it's also getting kind of expensive. So, it says you took some time, you spent a little money, rather than just sending a quick text. What is it, 55 cents or something nowadays?
Yes.
It's going to be $1 here soon, trust me. But, $1 to reconnect with someone you care about in a way that is more personal than we're used to nowadays. Letters used to be impersonal, but now they're personal again. It's hey man, it's a strange world. Letters used to be a very personal thing, and then they became, with the invention of the telephone, it was, letters became kind of impersonal, and you could just easily pick up a phone and call somebody. But now that everybody has unlimited minutes and a phone call is essentially valueless, the letter has more value now. Partly because it's unique, partly because you have to go out your way to do it. You have to take extra steps. Literally, it's inconvenient to write a letter. Even if you just type it and print it, it's still inconvenient, right?
It takes effort, yeah.
It's so, reconnect with your world. And that's one of these lessons I'm going to try to take in my own life, because it's one of those areas where I fail. And so I'll check in with you guys and let you know how at the end of these days where I do a lot of talking, my mouth doesn't work. I've done a lot of phone calls today. My mouth is not working anymore. Okay. And I'll let you all know how that's going. I can speak. I really can. Anyway, if you guys want show notes, you can go to latenightLove.us. You can send Lubby a dear love letter at love@latenightLove.us. You can find us on all your favorite social media things and doohickeys and like, subscribe, and do all those wonderful things that we greatly appreciate, because it will always help us. From me and Lubby, we want to thank you for being with us. Good night, and please remember to love everybody.
Good night.